Why hello there, good evening. It's Friday the 15th of January 2021. It has just gone 7pm. My name is Toby Lepati Mesme and this is tonight's edition of MesmePolitics. Over the next half hour we are bringing you all the latest in UK and US politics from a unique leftist perspective, cutting through the noise and bringing you all the detail. Get in touch in the chat throughout. And yes, this is where we are. Thatcherism on steroids is set to be unleashed across Britain. Straight onto our first story. So the government has rejected a report that following Brexit it plans to tear up employment protections based in EU law, a strategy that Labour has called a disgrace. Proposals, the Financial Times says, include an end to the 48-hour maximum working week, changes to rules about breaks at work, and removing overtime pay when calculating certain holiday pay entitlements. Another proposal would be to get rid of the current requirement for businesses to log information about daily working hours to save on administration costs. The package is being drawn up within the Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy, the newspaper said, and while it has not been put to other ministers, the department has consulted some business leaders, apparently promising further liberalisation of the British labour market. Such a move would prompt fierce opposition from unions and from Labour, what with Boris Johnson's government having pledged that the ability to diverge from EU rules post-Brexit would not involve watering down employment rights. Kwasi Kwarteng, new business secretary, says we are not going to lower the standards of workers' rights. The UK has one of the best workers' rights records in the world, going further than the EU in many areas. We want to protect and enhance workers' rights going forward, not row back on them. But his Labour shadow, Ed Miliband, says the FT report exposes the truth about the government's priorities, which are way out of step with the needs of workers and their families. In the midst of the worst economic crisis in 3 centuries, ministers are preparing to tear up their promises to the British people and take a sledgehammer to workers' rights. These proposals are not about cutting red tape for businesses, but ripping up vital rights for workers. They should not even be up for discussion. People are already deeply worried about their jobs and their health. It's a disgrace. The government is currently considering forcing them to work longer hours or lose paid holidays. This is where we are. This is where we are. Absolutely horrendous. Absolutely horrific. And once again, a vindication for the last leader of the opposition who had any conviction about himself. Take a listen. This is from October 2019.
I would like to thank the Prime Minister for an advanced copy of the statement, but what we have before us is a rehashed version of previously rejected proposals. Deal or no deal? Deal or no deal, Mr. Speaker, this government's agenda is clear. They want a Trump deal Brexit. A Trump deal Brexit that would crash our economy and rip away the standards that put a floor under people's rights at work, that protect our environment and protect our consumers. No Labour MP could support such a reckless deal that would be used as a springboard to attack rights and standards in this country. Mr. Speaker, the government's proposals are neither serious nor credible. Labour consulted with UK industry, businesses and unions on the need for a comprehensive customs union, close single market alignment and robust protection for workers' rights and environmental standards. We need an extension for serious negotiations towards the sort of deal that Labour has set out. And then let the people decide, leave with a sensible deal or remain.
He asks what is the advantage of this deal over the previous withdrawal agreement, and very simply it is...
So basically, right again, Trump deal Brexit, complete, basically, yeah, using it as a Trojan horse to take a sledgehammer to workers' rights, standards and protections in this country. Now, what do we make of this? What we have to do as a left, as a Labour movement, as progressives in the UK, is we have to fight this, guys, with everything we've got. We have to fight this with everything we've got, like it is the fight of our lives. We have to mobilise and foster mass civil disobedience on scales not seen since the days of austerity, but further, right? This is a continuation of the Thatcherite project. This would be a continuation of it, and a boost, basically rocket boosters under the Thatcherite agenda. They started with Margaret Thatcher's cruel reforms. They continued with John Major's privatisation initiatives. They followed through with New Labour's marketisation of the health service and various public services. They continued yet further with austerity and the brutal selling off of various aspects of the national jewels, basically, during the austerity years. And now they're going for a wholesale liberalisation of the labour market. This would be a continuation of Thatcherism with rocket boosters under it. It is scary. This is not a new Conservative Party. This is not a blue-collar Conservative Party. This is a Conservative Party deadly committed to following on with and upholding the interests of the 1%. This must be fought with everything we've got. The Tories are hijacking the notion of Brexit and all the opportunities and risks that it poses in order to take a sledgehammer to basic rights and protections enshrined in law in our economy. This will be dreadful. If this goes through, progress that has been fought for decades is rolled back in the blink of an eye. We do not take this lying down. The EU was never a bulwark against these sort of things. It never comprehensively protected these things, and while it did have a basic floor of certain rights and standards that was of course welcome, those things would easily have been traded away by the austerity peddling imperialist neoliberal organisation in order to keep Britain in the trading bloc. The EU was an extension of the Thatcherite project, not the antithesis of the Thatcherite project, not some sort of social democratic heaven. So, the reality is, it's centrist nonsense. People saying this is purely Brexit, or that this is somehow the fault of the left, whose any left-wing voices to leave the EU were very much marginalised and barely heard, and certainly had little to no effect on the outcome of the referendum, however much I wish it was otherwise. It's centrist nonsense. Let's remember, the reason we are where we are, with a Tory government doing what Tory governments do, is because the people's vote people, because the fanatical, hard Remain sect worked like hell in order to bring down the Corbyn project and ensure the election of a hard right government, all to assuage the delusion of cancelling Brexit, something that would never have happened, and if it had, would have been a middle finger to 17.4 million people, causing damage to democracy in this country, the likes of which we've never seen. Labour can fix this. Labour need to speak out on this now and keep speaking out about it. We've heard welcome noises from Ed Miliband, a clear laying out of the fact that this is a continuation of the Tories' 40-year project. We need to really loudly make noise about this. No one, Remain, Leave, Labour, Tory, voted for this. And if Labour is to form the next government, they can reverse this. They can enhance and they can upgrade standards in this country. The strategy right now is we have to shame the Conservatives out of doing this. They do have shame, right? They do have the worry for their own political expediency and their own careers. Therefore, if we scare them, frighten them, you'll be out of government if you follow through with this. People know what you're doing. And don't let them get away with it. Don't let them sweeten it with certain bribes of spending here and here. We can stop them. We can stop them doing this. The briefing can go the same way as Rishi Sunak's wealth tax, in the bin, never to be heard from again, deleted from history. Do you remember Rishi Sunak's wealth tax? Well, that's not going to happen, is it? But it was mooted at one point. Although, in fairness, I'd much rather Rishi Sunak's wealth tax has followed through on, certainly opposed to a mass redistribution of wealth upwards, which appears to be what we're going to be getting from this lot. Okay, over to the States. And Joe Biden is doing good things. President-elect Joe Biden has formally announced his plans for another stimulus package in response to the COVID pandemic. In a speech on Thursday night, Biden outlined his $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan. This ambitious plan aims to provide more than $1 trillion in direct aid to Americans and $440 billion in aid to businesses. Biden said it would be the first step in a two-part response. First, the rescue plan, and then a recovery plan to help rebuild America. The plan would be paid for by government borrowing. The Labour Department reported on Thursday that 1.15 million Americans filed new unemployment claims. The virus rips through the country with a record 4,197 deaths reported on Tuesday. The checks will be a maximum of $1,400, topping off the second round of $600 stimulus checks that recently went out to a total of $2,000. The first round of payments was only $1,200. The rescue plan also includes extended unemployment benefits for Americans with a weekly supplement totaling $400. It also includes assistance for low-income households totaling $30 billion. There's changes to the child tax credit. There's an expansion of the earned income tax credit. There's expansion to access to affordable childcare. There's an expansion of emergency paid leave. There will be an establishment of a $20 billion national vaccine program. There'll be funding for state and local governments of $350 billion. Funding for the hunger crisis, $3 billion to help women, infants and children through that program, the WIC program. Expansion of healthcare to subsidised by the government through to the end of September. Small business funding and a raising of the minimum wage to $15 an hour. This is ambitious. This is big. Let's hear Joe Biden.
A growing number of top economists has shown even our debt situation will be more stable, not less stable, if we seize this moment with vision and purpose. And so tonight, I'd like to talk to you about our way forward. A two-step plan of rescue and recovery. A two-step plan to build a bridge to the other side of the crisis we face to a better, stronger, more secure America. Tonight, I'll lay out my first step, the American Rescue Plan, that will tackle the pandemic and get direct financial assistance and relief to Americans who need it the most. I will lay out our vaccination plan to correct course and meet our goal of 100 million shots at the end of my first 100 days as president. This will be one of the most challenging operational efforts we have ever undertaken as a nation. We'll have to move heaven and earth to get more people vaccinated, to create more places for them to get vaccinated, to mobilize more medical teams to get shots in people's arms, to increase vaccine supply, and to get it out the door as fast as possible. We'll also do everything we can to keep our educators and students safe, to safely reopen a majority of our K-8 schools by the end of the first 100 days. We need to make sure that workers who have COVID-19 symptoms are quarantined, and those who need to take care of their family members with COVID-19 symptoms should be able to stay home from work and still get paid. This will reduce the spread of the virus and make sure workers get the support they need to maintain their families. Our rescue plan also includes immediate relief to Americans hardest hit and most in need. We will finish the job of getting a total of $2,000 in cash relief to people who need it the most. The $600 already appropriated is simply not enough. You just have to choose between paying rent and putting food on the table. We'll also provide more peace of mind for struggling families by extending unemployment insurance beyond the end of March for millions of workers. That means that 18 million Americans currently relying on unemployment benefits, while they look for work, can count on these checks continuing to be there. Plus, there will be a $400 per week supplement so people can make ends meet. 1 in 7 households in America, more than 1 in 5 Black and Latino households in America, report they don't have enough food to eat. This includes 30 million adults and as many as 12 million children.
So he goes on to he talks about the wealthy getting wealthier. He talks about income inequality. He talks about systemic inequities and inequalities in the American economy. He says a lot of very un-Joe Biden type things. The Republicans have basically come in with their standard attack lines. Someone says President-elect Biden launches yet another economic blind buffalo. Try pronouncing that live on the radio. That does nothing to save Main Street businesses, get people back to work, or strengthen our economy. Special interests and liberals are cheering. The jobless and Main Street are left shaking their heads. That's from Kevin Brady, a Republican House representative from Texas. So the standard claptrap there. Any more claptrap? Someone says, will this stimulate our local economies? Not a lot. If you actually wanted to create more jobs during this pandemic, then why would you impose a costly $15 minimum wage on small businesses? This is just another example of progressives trying to pass their liberal agenda under the guise of COVID relief. A lot of hypocrisy, a lot of contradictory statements. We'll get into that in a minute. Meanwhile, progressives say $2,000 means $2,000. $2,000 does not mean $1,400. Yeah, quite right. It will technically be $2,000 because it's sort of topped up. But yeah, they did promise $2,000. They should be providing the full $2,000. At one point, I proposed $3,000. I think that would be more adequate. But if we can get $2,000 out the door, even if it's topped up like that, I can sort of settle for that at the very least, you know. So what have we got? Well, we see a huge shift of the centre in American politics. I think that is undeniable at this point. The centre ground has moved because Joe Biden, in instinct, is more conservative than Barack Obama, but he is proposing things far more progressive than anything Barack Obama ever proposed. Therefore, there's been a huge shifting of the centre, down to progressive Democrats, down to Bernie Sanders, and this all looks promising. What is being proposed, for better or worse, looks promising. We've got to take it all with a gigantic pinch of salt. Hold this new Biden administration to all of it. Hold them to upholding these things, not falling into the pitfalls the Obama administration fell into, not being sort of dazzled by it, not just letting them get on with it. We have to hold these people to account, and we have to really take it with a huge degree of skepticism, because that's the best way to ensure some of this passes. News from Biden that he's aiming for bipartisanship, or wanting, technically they need 10 Republicans to pass this. Actually, you can use sort of budget reconciliation mechanisms in order to jam it through on a majority vote. Talking about bipartisanship here is weird and ridiculous. It's just stupid, considering... I mean, Biden's sort of naive on these things, we know that, but the reality is, a lot of these people are either insurrectionists or saboteurs. They want to bring down this administration. They want to do well in the 2022 midterms. They want to take back the White House in 2024. They are your political enemies from day one. What does Biden need to do? He needs to work, especially with Bernie Sanders, now the new chairman of the Budget Committee. I don't think if that's the exact title, but it's something to that effect. I know what I'm talking about. Maybe you don't, because I'm not making complete sense. I'm not fully, versed on the procedural details and minutiae of budgets and committees in the Senate. But anyway, they're going to need, if they can get it through on just a majority vote. That was the point of getting a unified government, getting a democratic Senate. Therefore, let's actually see them push it through. Let's not sink all this. Let's not run the risk of sinking all this by begging Republicans, or letting them, as I've heard some talk about, put some of their priorities in this. Do not make toxic bargains. Do not, I cannot emphasize this enough, do not let the Republicans get their priorities for big business and the rich enshrined in this. Keep it as it is, because it looks okay as it is. Let's not muddy it, okay, because it can pass. And tangible benefits being passed down to the American people, something that looked in jeopardy before, but now looks really real, particularly with the recovery package coming down the line, as well as this immediate, rescue package. Green infrastructure, an improvement to people's lives at a local level, that can foster a new hegemony for the Democrats, a hegemonic electoral coalition that will keep them in power nationally and grow their congressional positionings. That is what they have to aim for. That's what they have to work like hell for. And toxic bargains will jeopardise that. They've got to make use of these 2 years or risk losing control of Congress in 2022. That's a real risk, and it's imminently likely if we don't see real results and real delivery. Is the money going to the right place? Well, it's good to see local governments being mentioned here, because that will stem the tide of austerity that we saw during the Obama administration. Stimulus checks, good, but go a bit further. They've backed off a bit, but really the proof is in the pudding. Deliver this and maybe I'll be happy. Talk of investment and deficit spending actually positions the Biden administration to the left of Keir Starmer's Labour at the moment. So it's good seeing the Biden administration basically educating people on the reality of things and pushing back on the deficit hawkery and those neoliberal talking points in a way that the Obama administration never did, and Keir Starmer's Labour really isn't. So it's an indictment of Keir Starmer, but it's good to see the Biden administration actually taking on those norms in a way I was sceptical they ever would. Hawkery from the GOP on the deficit is nonsense. We know the economic reality of these things. We know investing to grow is the strategy. We know the current interest rate climate. We know there's no risk of inflation with high debts, low interest rates. We know that's not the case. We know we can push on with this, and that will put the economy in the most sustainable position going forward. Progressives must not be seduced by the new Biden administration. They must hold fast, and they must hold them to account with all the skepticism in the world. The rescue package must pass immediately upon Biden being sworn in, and then if it doesn't, let's hear a hell of a ruckus made, and let's see them use every procedural trick in the book, play dirty, get it passed. And then let's see the recovery package brought forward as is being talked about in February. Let's also get that passed to hell with the Republicans, one way or the other. Get it passed on clear majority votes. And then maybe there's hope for the Democrats in America. And back to the UK for our final bits and pieces of the day. There is a heralding challenge to Boris Johnson's leadership. His position as Prime Minister could be under threat if the coronavirus lockdown in England lasts into late spring, a backbench Conservative MP has warned. Steve Baker, in a message to fellow Tories in the COVID recovery group, that's 70 MPs, only need 55 to trigger a leadership challenge, saying it was imperative you equip the Chief Whip today with your opinion that debate will become about the PM's leadership if the government does not set out a clear plan for when our full freedoms will be restored, with a guarantee that this strategy will not be used again next winter. Certain government scientists have said that the current lockdown could last until late spring. There is no reason to think that there will be any real resistance in the cabinet to the argument for greater and longer and more draconian restrictions on the public. This could be a disaster. Nothing seems more certain to break the public than giving hope before taking it away and doing it repeatedly. Although he did row back and say, what this country needs is the complete success of Boris Johnson, with his excellent EU deal, a successful vaccination programme, and a road to recovery back to freedom. I am clear Boris is the only person to lead us out of these difficulties, and I support him in that endeavour. Snivelling weasel. But anyway, I think the first thing we have to remember is these people are cranks, they're lunatics. They've been proven comprehensively wrong by this second, third wave, whatever we want to call it, and the heartbreaking disaster we're in right now. Don't listen to them, but they do hold too much influence in the Tory party, particularly with the PM that wants to be liked by everyone. They hold influence over the PM. Our PM is being held hostage by far-right cranks at the moment, becoming more and more like the Republican Party, becoming increasingly unhinged. Doing the right thing on lockdown may well bring Boris Johnson down, but he has to stick to what he knows he has to do for the benefit of the country. He cannot bow to these idiots and clowns, as he has done at many points during the government's response to coronavirus. Johnson's position in his party is, as we speak right now, greatly diminished. But we have to remember, let's not cheer it on. I mean, the risk to Johnson does come far more from his own party than from the opposition right now. He may well not survive the end of this term. He may well not want to survive the end of this term. It is anyone's guess. The talk of a January resignation has been proven wrong. but it has been greatly diminished. But let's not cheer it on too much, because those that fill the void may be more sinister, may be more far to the right economically, right? Do you really want Rishi Sunak overseeing our economic recovery in Downing Street? Do you really want Priti Patel seizing the keys to number 10? I don't think so. Do you want Prime Minister Dominic Raab? No. This is something we really don't want to happen. It might be people even more illiberal, even more dangerous, or further to the right, rather than further to the centre than Boris Johnson. That is the real worry. Quick report for you from Sky News on the risk of the Brazil variant and its implications on vaccines. Then I want to give you a quick update on the state of affairs with coronavirus in the UK.
The UK has today taken the decision to ban arrivals on flights from South America, Portugal and Cape Verde. It's because of fears around a new variant of COVID-19 known as the Brazil variant. It was first detected on Sunday when Japan's health ministry said it had discovered the variant in 4 travellers who arrived in Tokyo from Brazil's Amazonas state. Researchers in Brazil say the new variant, named P1, was identified in 42% of positive samples collected and sequenced in the city of Manaus. Boris Johnson says that he is concerned about the variant. But why? Well, the Brazil variant is said to feature 12 mutations in the spike protein, with many of these similar to those found in the already known variants first found in the UK and in South Africa. The N501Y mutation is present in all 3 variants, and it's associated with causing higher transmissibility. But tests by Pfizer-BioNTech found their vaccine can still target this key mutation.
Things still looking relatively promising there, which is of course good, as we bring you news that 2/3 of all NHS trusts across England are treating more coronavirus patients last week than they were at the peak of the first wave of the pandemic. Figures show that in 17 trusts, the numbers of people suffering from coronavirus outnumbered all other patients. On the current trajectory, the number of people being treated for COVID in England's hospitals could double that of the April 2020 peak within weeks. 6 trusts in London, the east of England and the southeast have become COVID majority trusts, meaning that, on average last week, more than half their beds were taken up by coronavirus patients. 2 others have 50% of their bed capacity taken up by COVID patients. A further 34 trusts have had at least 1/3 of their general and acute bed capacity taken up by coronavirus cases last week, and 15 NHS trusts treated at least 3 times as many patients in the week to Tuesday as they did in the first wave, with some really scary statistics going about. Over 1,000 deaths today, just the state of affairs is still dreadful. Infections themselves seem to be plateauing and going down. The lockdown is working in that sense, but deaths are going up. We're not out of the worst of this. Even if we lock down even further, we're still not out of the worst of this, and we mustn't relent too soon. If we relent too soon, as we did last time, if the government continues to make the same mistakes again, then what will happen, of course, is we will resign ourselves to further waves next winter. Sorry, that fired too early. That wasn't meant to fire yet. Press the button, trigger it too soon. But yeah, that is about it from us on the show today, in terms of everything I wanted to talk about, all the priorities I thought I should bring to your attention. There's a lot coming up over the next few days. We, of course, have an impeachment trial. Yeah, I know. Combat against the government's latest assault on workers' rights. I also want to put on the agenda, the incoming Biden administration, everything they're going to be going through. Labour's vision, which they should be setting out. What will be happening with the local elections. There's all sorts coming up in British politics. If you see a centrist Twitter commentator banging on about how's Legxit going, then block them, because they are stupid. And that's about it from me today. That's more like it. Get in touch in the chat. Come and say hello. Get in touch over the next 24 hours before I join you at 7 p.m. tomorrow for more. On email, tobyjoshua2004@gmail.com. My name is Toby Lepati Mesme. This has been MesmePolitics, bringing you all the latest in UK and US politics from a leftist perspective. You can follow me on Twitter at TobyJoshuaUK or read my twice daily 2-minute reads on Medium, where I'm at Toby Joshua Politics. See you soon. Tomorrow, to be precise, at 7 p.m.